camouflage for them in the rainforest. So from the floor looking up, they blend in pretty well unless they're, on the move. So it's pretty a good adaptation for them to be able to have that all on their back like that for camouflage. In the wild, they also have a moth that lives on them. It's called the sloth moth that only lives on the back of a sloth, nowhere else in the world. And they have a symbiotic relationship between the two, so that means that both parties benefit. So the moths benefit because once a week when the sloth comes down to use the bathroom, he goes down the same tree, the same side of the tree, into the same pile that he did the week prior. And those moths will climb down off of the back of the sloth and lay their larvae in the dung pile. And then they'll catch their ride back up into the rainforest. The following week, when the sloth comes back down the same side, those moth larvae that have developed into adult moths at that point will climb back up onto the sloth, and the cycle will repeat. And so for the moths, it's just a whole way of life. They get transportation to and from their breeding ground, and they just live happily ever after. Unless the sloth turns around and licks them off, which is how the sloth benefits. And so when they groom themselves, they lick up a portion of the moths that serves to be their source of protein, as well as a portion of the moth's waste. And the moth's waste is where they get the bacteria for their stomach to be able to digest their food. And so for us, it's an enzymatic process, how we digest our food, but for them, it's a bacterial process. And if they did not have that bacteria in their gut, they would not be able to digest food. And so that begs the question that since they don't have moths or the moth's waste on the sloth here in captivity, how do they get their bacteria? And that's from the mother. When they're about 3 days old is when they start being interested in what the mother's doing and what the mother's eating. And they will venture up and lick a little bit of the saliva mixed with her food along the sides of her mouth. And the bacteria that she has in her gut goes all the way through her digestive tract, through her esophagus, and is in her mouth. And so that saliva that's mixed with just a little bit of the food that the baby licks up will start to form the baby's bacteria colony. And they will keep that bacteria colony the rest of their lives unless something like really stressful, like the weather was to change, so they can't regulate their own body temperature, which is why it has to stay 78 degrees in here all the time. Because if it were to drop much below that, the bacteria colony would begin to die off. If the bacteria colony began to die off and the sloth did not perish in that act and they were to still make it, which a lot of times they will pass pretty quickly after an event like that, which is why everything is so sensitive for them. And we have to make sure the temperature stays just right in here, the humidity is right, the doors get closed if it starts to get cold. But if they were to go through an event like that where some of their bacteria colony were to die off, they started to get irregular bowel movements, they started to get diarrhea, anything like that, then having 3 sloths really benefits us because we can do something really gross that a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, I would have never thought of that. But if we had one sloth, say Flash got really sick and some of his bacteria colony died off, then we have 2 other recipients that we would be able to collect their stool, mix it up into a slurry, and do a fecal transplant, which is a fecal oral route. So it would not go rectally, it would go directly into their mouth, and they would eat that, and that would begin to restore their bacteria colony. So it's all a really sensitive and big grand scheme of things that we have to know about to be able to keep sloths. And so the general public, there is no reputable breeder in the United States that would just sell a sloth to the general public that did not have all of this knowledge. Even if they did a lot of research, it's still a lot that goes into having and maintaining and keeping healthy, happy sloths alive in captivity. And so sure, there may be a few breeders out there that would just sell to the general public, but they're not going to be reputable breeders. And so both Zoe and Dash came from a breeder that Flash is saying hello to you behind you there.
Take a picture of them.
How big are they when they're babies?
They are very tiny. I'm not sure about the exact logistics about how much they weigh when they're born, but they are fully functional when they're born, and they're able to hold all of their body weight up by just one arm by the time that they're born.
So each have their own habitat, huh?
Yes. Flash wants to come out and see us. And so I'm just gonna open up this door and I'll let him climb out here if he wants to. And I always tell everyone that's on the live, if the people that are watching on the live are watching right now, then I always tell them that this is not part of Zoe's interaction. This is not part of her encounter. But if Flash wants to come out, then Flash gets what he wants. And so he wanted to come out and say hello. So he'll come out here and hang out with us. But it's not a guarantee that if you booked to hang out with Zoe that you get to see Flash as well.
Well, that's sweet that he wants to see what's going on.
So this is just a nice little bonus.
Yeah, that is a nice little bonus. So he's like, hey, why are you taking all my
Wait till you get
attention?
this picture. I get the attention here. Yeah, I know, you get the attention.
Hi.
So Flash is 6 years old, and when we got him, he was 3.
And how old is Zoe?
Zoe's 16 months, so she just turned a year.
she's just a baby.
Yeah, she just turned a year old in
So
December.
is this always enclosure here then, and then what about, where's Dash then?
Dash stays at the house most of the time right
Okay.
now. He just comes down for his encounters and in the evening to get his evening feeding down here to just slowly start acclimating him to being down here. And he'll stay up there until he's a year old. And then
Okay.
he'll start to come down here a lot more often, spend some nights down here and
Hi.
slowly get acclimated too.
Hi. Hi.
Just remember that he can't tell the difference between a finger and a sweet potato.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Want to stand next to him and I'll take a picture?
Yeah, I can take your picture
Oh,
too.
you want to take a picture?
Yeah.
You want to stand next to Flash?
If you want to step over there, I can take a picture of both of you guys. You can stand right next to him. Yeah. Those are some good ones. Oh, and even with them reaching out.
Reaching out,
All
looking
right,
at.
all right, Flash. Yeah,
Ah,
those
that's
are some
cute.
good
Look at
ones.
them reaching out for each other.
Yeah.
That's very cute.
Okay. Can we switch?
Uh-huh.
Or is it time to switch?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
All right, Flash.
All right.
Grab onto my hair now. Girl, Here, Zozo.
Like, no, I want more hugs. I want more hugs.
Girl. Go on, match there.
She's such a sweetheart.
It's the same thing, just reminding you that she doesn't like the cat scratches, and you can just slow down, pets down her back. And if she were to get kind of fussy with you, clawing back at you or anything, just give her a break and just put both your hands under her booty.
Okay.
Zozo. Here, he wants to see you.
This is so funny that he's hanging upside down.
Yep.
Like, almost like, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Oh. Very sweet.
It's just amazing how quickly she just reaches in and,
Yep.
gives you a hug because she's just so used to it.
Flash.
So it's- I mean, basically 6 days a week, she's seeing new people and interacting like that. Now, for Dash being in the house, is that like a 78 degree or 70?
Yes, so it is quite warm in their house. They
Okay.
keep it pretty
They
warm.
keep it warm just for that
Yes.
reason?
And then he also gets a towel laid over his basket just like this to keep some of the heat in the basket. Are you wanting some spinach, honey? Is that what you're wanting? Yep. Did you get the midday munchies as well? And so you can see he slowly started to show us that he can move his hips 180 degrees backwards.
Oh, wow.
And so he can go even further than that, but I'm not gonna make him.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of extra vertebrae in between his shoulders and his hips, and he has a total of 46 ribs. So that's double what we have. That allows him to withstand falls from up to 100 feet in the air. So if something were to be after them in the tops of the trees in the rainforest and they both took a tumble, the sloth would almost certainly survive that fall, and whatever it is that's after them will almost certainly not survive that fall. So the sloth will just look over at them and go, aw.
Who is their enemy?
Aw.
Like,
So their number one is the harpy eagle. That's what can see them the best from the very top of the trees, looking down. They're a little bit easier to spot than from the floor of the rainforest looking up. And they can snatch them out of the trees pretty easily. The harpy eagle is a very, very big, mighty eagle that has enough strength and grip strength to be able to do that. Some other things that are after them are the jaguar and an ocelot that live on the floor of the rainforest. If on the off chance that they were to see a sloth from the bottom of the rainforest looking up, or if they were adventuring around in one of the trees, if the sloth saw that coming at them, the sloth's goal is to get to the end of the branch, until that branch either breaks or he runs out of the branch. And so in that case, they would go tumbling to the floor. And so for the sloth, that's not necessarily bad news. He can just climb back up and go back up the tree if whatever it was that was after them does not make that fall. So.
Well, and, so what they're, I don't wanna say known for, but like, the slow movements that they have all the time and the slow metabolism. But if they're being attacked like that, how fast can they move if they're in danger?
I'm not sure about like miles per hour or anything like that, but they can definitely get after it. Not like a, full-on
I'm
run.
supposed to do a Marco Polo. I was supposed to do a Marco Polo while I was holding Zoe.
What do you mean?
A Marco Polo?
For who, your
For
group?
my group, yeah.
Well, it's too late now.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Scheduled for day 3.
we try to just transfer off just once, just to limit the amount of back and forth that they have to do.
I can just post the video and go.
Yeah.
And if you want to, I can take another picture of you standing right next to Flash.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
want to. It's pretty cool when he hangs all the way upside down like that.
Okay, so let me get there. Okay. So just stand next to him?
Yeah, you can stand right next to him.
Hi. Hi. Oh, look how cute Zoe is.
He's thinking about reaching back out,
Yeah.
trying to get Zoe. Alright, I took a bunch of them so you can
Thank
go
you.
through and pick out the best ones.
Well, hello. Hello.
You're putting on a show today, aren't you, Flash?
Like who, me? Who, me?
That's just so neat though, how they
Wow,
wanna come out and interact,
They're
so.
so fine,
Mhm.
and so fluffy when he's not as big as he looks like he is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she's so sweet.
And so I said that those ribs help them to withstand that fall, but that's because all of those ribs that they have connective tissue that's attached to the ribs themselves and their organs. So everything that's in their abdominal cavity stays where it's supposed to. So even when he's hanging like that and when he's totally upside down, all of his organs stay where they're supposed to and they don't slosh all the way to his chest or all the way to his back. Stays just where it's supposed to, and that's the same for if they fall out of the tree. If you think about for us, if we were to get into a car accident, a lot of the damage that could be done is our organs and brain and everything sloshing around inside of us, and they don't have that because they're built for taking falls like that and for everything just being upside down and opposite to us. You had an itch there, buddy?
I didn't until she pet me. Petted me. And I think I'll just move over here, so she can touch me.
Oh, you do, bud.
Now, does he do the holding and, things too? Like
Nope,
the
so-
cuddle ones like Zoe does?
Nope, so this is the extent of what he will do, and that is just fine with us.
Yeah.
Feeding him out of our hand is a good enough feed. Like I said, the facility that he came from before we had him did not interact with him at all, and he was already three years old.
Yeah.
So that's what he was acclimated to, and that's what he was used to. I don't know what his background was before he came to that facility where he was bred, but he was definitely not bred in the same way that these guys are. And you can tell the difference between the two as well, because Zoe is only 16 months old, and she's still got a lot of growing ahead of her, and she is almost as big as Flash is now. So she will surpass Flash in weight.
Oh.
She will be a much bigger sloth than he is.
Girl, the boy.
Oh, there you go.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
He said, didn't like that one. He does this cool trick where sometimes I'll give him a little stick of veggie or something, and I'll show him one end. He's like, no, I don't want that end. So I'll switch it around and show him the other end. He's like, yeah, that's the end. And then he'll eat it. And I'm like, you do realize that is the same vegetable that I just offered you.
I bet he loves it though, that he's got people to
Interact with.
interact with,
Yeah.
yeah. He seems to love it.
Yeah. What do you think, buddy? And so I said that they can't distinguish between, the difference between your finger and a sweet potato. And that's because their eyesight is so poor, that they, you can see how dilated his pupils are right now.
Mhm.
So that's essentially like if you were to cut both of your hands together and look through it just like that, that's about all they see. They don't have any peripheral vision. They also have what's called broad monochromacy, which means that they only have rod cells in their eyes and no cone cells. And the cone cells are what's responsible for seeing color, while the rod cells are what's responsible for seeing motion. So they can see something moving in front of them really well. They don't know what it is, but to them in the wild, anything that's moving in front of them is bad news.
Right.
And so especially for our babies that are a lot more reactive to movement like that, it can startle them pretty easily. If you move real quick in front of them or make loud noise, they're just hypersensitive to that because their vision is so bad. So they can't see the difference between me or you, but they can hear the difference. So he knows who I am based off just me talking.
That's what I was gonna ask, how do they recognize you by your voice or are they, like, I don't know if they have a really good sense of smell, can they tell the difference between people based on that?
Well, for telling the difference between people, they do have a really good sense of smell. He can smell a banana from me holding it all the way down here on the floor.
Okay,
And he'll come down within, just a few seconds, he'll smell that and he'll make his way down because he loves bananas. But for the people, the first thing that they hear is us talking to him, so I'll go in and I'll say, hey, Zozo, and she knows it's me already.
okay,
So I like to think that you probably smell the difference because we all kind of have our own,
right.
sense. It doesn't even really matter what kind of soap you use, you just have a natural kind of scent about you.
Yeah.
And animals pick up on that. So probably so, but she definitely knows
So
who we are.
I didn't notice any smell with her, so do you guys bathe them or?
No, well, we
or do they-
occasionally, Zoe, she loves to do this silly trick where she does not come down the tree to use the bathroom, and she will mess her in her hammock. So then we'll walk off if we have to, but they have no natural scent, bus plans or anything like that.
Forgot you were in there with Sloth and when I like, bam, did it just like, get in here?
Oh, I wasn't paying attention.
I hollered, I was standing there with John and his valve on his truck tire, did
Oh.
he tell you this? We're standing there talking about Medea and pow! We heard this huge noise, walk outside, and his valve stem on his tire is just blown off.
Huh. Interesting.
But I was in the other room and I hollered, BAM! And they were both like, that was so loud. I'm like, oh no, I bet somebody just got clawed by a sloth.
Oh,
Can we
yeah,
take another one?
I know, I
But
was
she's
doing
doing a
a,
selfie.
Oh, okay.
with me and Flash there.
I can get him to, might be able to get him to lower down here too, where you can take a picture of him side by side next to you. What do you think about this? May have to
There
step,
you go.
yeah, step to one of his sides there. May have to step over this way to get to the side
Oh,
of
I
it.
got it.
Okay.
I got it, yeah.
Go, bud.
That's so cool. Well, thank you
That's
so
neat.
much.
Yeah.
This has been, just a really great experience.
All right, so
It was so nice to meet you. It was so nice to meet you. I know. Are you shaking my hand? Are you shaking my hand? Or don't touch your back, which is it? Which is it?
That was a don't touch my side.
Yeah, that's, okay, Mama, I'm ready for them to go.
You guys can kind of watch how I take her in here and set her into her hammock.
Okay.
I might have to kind of hold this door,
Okay.
because otherwise it'll want to close back here.
Okay.
But she is, when she was a baby,
Mhm.
we almost named her Oof.
Oof?
Because Oof, when we would set her down, she would go reaching back at us and go oof, 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 wanting to be picked up again. There's Baku.
Oh my gosh, what is that, an armadillo?
Yes.
So was that in her environment?
Yes, and so they are roommates. But I will have to get out of here pretty quickly, otherwise she's gonna start climbing back at me, trying to get me to pick her back up.
Okay, got it.
And so Baku is distantly related to the sloths. So Baku has the ability to curl up into a ball, and they have the ability, or they have a hinged spine, which gives him that ability to curl up into a ball like that. And
Was he
that's the-
looking to?
Yeah, he's looking to go behind the fridge because he knows that I hate it when he does that.
Oh.
Yeah. He is
That's so
slowly becoming one of my favorites though, because his personality is just so big. He knows that I don't like it when he gets back there, and so he gets back there anyway.
That's so
It's
funny.
just a game,
Yeah.
right? At this point, it
I
becomes a
thought they
game.
were so much bigger than that.
Well, he's a three-banded armadillo, and he's from Brazil. So
Okay.
this is not the ones that we see on the sides of the road. The ones that we see here on the sides of the road are nine-banded armadillos.
Okay.
So you can see here, this is his head plate, this is his tail, and you can see the 1, 2, 3 bands, and they
Okay.
are
Can I touch
interlinked
them?
with, yeah, the skin.
Oh, wow.
So you can see all the little hairs that
Yeah.
are extended off of him and on his belly. So that means he's a mammal.
Okay.
They give birth to live armadillos. They don't lay eggs or anything like that.
Okay.
And
Okay. Thank you. I've never broken a phone, but we would be the first.
Yeah, break it after you have all the videos on it.
Yeah,
You
right?
can't get them out, right?
And so he likes to do this cool little trick where in the wild, if something were trying to get at him and clawing and biting, he would open up just a tiny little bit, just enough for a paw or a nose or a tongue to get into him, and then he would snap closed and not open until he felt like it.
Oh, that's funny.
And so we always have to tell people, if you go to pick up Baku, do not stick your little fingers near that because it will slam closed like a car door.
And then you can't get it out?
Yeah, and you'd have to like set him back down on the ground for him to.
Oh, so like,
Yeah.
oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh. That's,
Wow,
that's awesome.
neat.
Yeah.
That's
That is
awesome.
Well, I will put him back in here, and they are roommates because it gives them both just a little bit of enrichment, and so it gives him enrichment to look up and see Zoe always coming around when she's active and moving around. She'll come on and gives him.
She's like, oh, I need a nap now. I need a nap.
Well, that was the other thing, they said, you know, I'd rather they sleep 18 hours a day, so does she kind of get used to knowing that, hey, this is visitor time, and then
Yes,
it's
so-
nap time after that?
Yeah, so something else that I didn't talk about is that we're very guarded of the time that we spend with our sloths and the time that we allow everybody else to spend with our sloths.
Yeah,
And that's because, you know, I like to know what time I wake up in the morning. I like to have a routine, what time my alarm's gonna be off, what time I'm gonna eat lunch and go to my break and go to work. And they're the same way. And so a lot of times places will advertise as drop-in sloth encounters. And places like that, you really have to do your research into because they could be open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the sloths don't know when they're gonna be interacted with.
wow.
They may be okay with it, they may be, ambassador animals like this, although I'm not sure that a place that bred ambassador animals would sell
Would
to
allow
a
that,
facility
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But they just never know. They don't know when they're gonna be interacted with. And so Flash, when we first started doing his encounters, at 10 o'clock every morning is when he wanted to come out here and get his breakfast. So when I come in at 9:30, if somebody hasn't opened up the door already, he's already tapping right here on the glass trying to get out. And so that's what time he decided that he wanted to come down, eat breakfast, and interact with us, and that's what time that we started to schedule his encounters. And the same thing with Zoe, right afterwards, if you get a sloth VIP where you do 30 minutes with Flash and then 30 minutes with Zoe, Zoe knows that when we're out here and we have people in here that she's not heard before and we're interacting with Flash, that right afterwards she's going to be interacted with as well. And so they begin to get that routine down. And say somebody only books with Flash at 10 o'clock and not with her, she's already expecting it. She thinks that she's going to be interacted with. And then they don't interact with her. I go in and I'll hold her and I'll interact with her because that's what she's used to. She is used to
Yeah.
she gets anticipated, you know, being able to interact with people. And so we're very guarded of their time, and we make sure that their time is, you know, based around what time they want to interact.
Yeah,
Awesome.
So,
that is
Well,
funny.
thank you so
yeah,
much.
no problem, but I hope that you guys got a lot of good information.